Helen Clare on ABC Local Radio.
It's 10:15. Helen Clare in for Garth Russell on 12:33 mornings. We're sitting on 22 degrees in the city at the moment. Yesterday, you might have heard Garth talking about hair pieces and how it can sometimes become a bit of a white elephant, especially in social circumstances, should your hairpiece become unstuck, as some callers described. Something I think just as embarrassing that can affect all of us, and in fact 30% of Australians regularly suffer from it, is bad breath. It's also called halitosis. I wonder whether you've ever been in a situation where the assault to the senses has been pretty bad, but it's very difficult to say anything. It can also be very difficult if it's you who indeed has the bad breath. Trying to conquer it, I guess it can be a real cause of social insecurity. So I thought we might look into bad breath. And to help us look into this is somebody who's known as Dr. Bad Breath, quite a title, Dr. Jeffrey Spicer. I don't know whether that's a title that you'd be proud of or not, Dr. Spicer.
That's fine. It's nice to be associated with hairpieces.
Now, you're a dentist and a halitosis specialist. So halitosis is the fancy name for nasty breath?
That's right. That's what dentists do to confuse people.
Now, I understand that these days you have a way of measuring it, just how bad somebody's breath is.
Yes, in the clinic we can do that. There's actually two machines that will measure the actual main gases of bad breath. These are sulfur compounds that people breathe out.
And if I understand it correctly, not everybody breathes out the same sort of compound. There are some people who it wouldn't matter what you fed them, garlic, onions, any sort of dodgy substance, and they still wouldn't have bad breath. Why is it that some people are so badly affected and others seem to be immune?
Well, true bad breath is really just due to an imbalance of bacteria in the mouth, and then the bacteria will break down proteins to give people energy, and they give off a waste product, and that waste product are the sulfur compounds. So if you've got a healthy mouth and you eat foods that give you, transitional bad breath, that's not the same as the chronic person that has actually changed the bacteria in their mouth. That's why some people get it, some people don't. So
there are really degrees of the problem. So when you sniff somebody's breath, can you tell straight away whether theirs is a chronic problem or just, what they've eaten last night?
Well, what they've eaten last night smells usually more like food than it does like bad breath. Not wanting to turn your listeners off too much.
It is a difficult thing to talk about, isn't it? But
it is. But some of the smells are bad breath. I thought we may as well get that out of the way, and so we can put it under the carpet and not come back to it.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Feces, rotten eggs, cabbage, sulphur, and gasoline. Now they're the main ones. Then you get into the more rare ones, which is mothball, corpse, urine, decaying flesh, or off cheese.
And they're all legitimate descriptions for this problem.
Yeah. Well, for example, the smell that makes the smell of corpses is called cadaverine. The one that does decaying flesh is called putrescine. They're all lumped as something called volatile sulfur compounds, which is really just a gas that is a waste product from bacteria, and it just depends which bacteria, which protein was fed to them, and then that determines the smell.
So 30% of Australians can have their bad breath sort of fit into one of those categories?
30% of Australians will have bad breath, and usually, as I say, it's rotten eggs or feces smell. The older you get, the more likely you're going to have bad breath. And in fact, a study done in Israel showed that 50% of middle-aged people had bad breath, and it was offensive bad breath.
Why is that? Why does it get worse as you get older?
Well, once you hit 25, your saliva flow starts to slow down, and saliva is really the buffer, the protecting mechanism of the mouth. So it's what really cleans out all the excess bacteria and keeps everything in a nice, even balance. So from the fact that we also get medical conditions, really it's just the lack of saliva production we're making as we get older. So
baby boomers beware.
Yes.
How many people, though, actually would go and seek help for their bad breath? I mean, it can be a difficult thing to self-diagnose too, can't it? If you put your hand up over your mouth and do the little, huff-puff test, is that always an indicator?
It's not an indicator at all. It is a totally wrong way of diagnosing bad breath. Look, you can't smell your own bad breath. You can only smell it if it's coming from your nose. Right, so in other words, not from your mouth, but you're breathing it out, and that's because people have too much bacteria in the nasal passages or sort of back of throat. In general, the only ways you can test your own breath would be to lick the back of your hand, allow that to dry for about 10-15 seconds, and then smell that. And what you're actually doing is smelling the sulfur compounds then. The other way you can do it is to take a spoon and scrape it down your tongue and actually smell the coating that's on your tongue. Or you come into a clinic and you ask the clinic to test you. Right.
So there you go. That's the test. You lick the back of your hand, leave it for about 10-15 seconds, and then smell.
Yeah, it's got to be dry, so you're actually smelling the sulfur compounds, not the saliva.
So, I've never heard of that particular method. Most people are relying on people very close to them and able to be very honest with them to let them know that they've got a bit of a problem.
You know, a person that actually is a chronic sufferer never believes someone that they ask. If they ask someone and that person says you don't have bad breath, they think they're being nice to them. Because basically they're asking someone because they actually think they do have bad breath and they're looking for affirmation of that.
Yeah, that's a really tough thing to deal with, isn't it? So how many people actually go on to, what's the success rate in terms of treating bad breath? Is every case of bad breath treatable?
Every case of bad breath can be made better. Not all will be 100% treatable because it's a multifactorial problem. I mean, it's a mix from saliva to medicines you may be on to nasal problems, but it can always be improved. We might get maybe 5 to 10 people a week that will come in physically to the clinic, but we'll get over 50 people a day that consult us over the internet so they can do it anonymously.
Yes, because the embarrassment factor is enormous.
Huge.
What do you recommend for people in terms of overcoming that, and who've, I guess, put off dealing with bad breath because it just all seems too hard and it's a terribly difficult thing to acknowledge?
Yeah, look, at this stage there's no way around it. I mean, the internet's great because basically with emails, we have quizzes that we can send out to people and say, look, fill this in and we can, sort of explain you're doing this wrong or that wrong or try and identify, issues for them. But there's nothing that, substitutes from actually having someone come in so you can test their breath, test their saliva, do all those sorts of scientific things.
10:22 on 12:33 ABC Newcastle. Helen Clare with you in for Garth Russell this morning. And we're delving into bad breath in all its ugly sulphurous forms. We've just heard the descriptions and I don't think we'll go through them again because it really is quite off-putting, but it's a serious problem for about 30% of people. I heard recently, one of the things I saw on one of the health TV shows was that you can fix your own bad breath or at least improve it greatly by drinking probiotic drinks, those little fermented milk drinks.
Yeah, I've got issues with that. The probiotics, Acidophilus and Bifidus, that everyone knows about, really are stomach bacteria. They won't live in the mouth, which is where the 90% of the issues come from. And we don't believe that the stomach really plays a big part of bad breath.
Okay, and in terms of that also rules out diet, that you could actually control it with what you eat by completely avoiding all those foods that you suspect might be causing your bad breath?
Yes and no. One of the main factors in bad breath is a protein source which comes directly from dairy products. So eliminating dairy from your diet will go a long way to reducing the amount of protein that you have running around your mouth.
But we're being told that we need to eat protein. Protein's an important thing for us to be consuming on a daily basis, isn't it?
It is, but that doesn't mean that your protein source has to come from dairy.
Right.
I mean, you're still having your red meats, your white meats, those sorts of things. But dairy breaks down directly into sulfur compounds, and the second thing dairy does is it thickens your nasal mucus, and nasal mucus is the second most common protein that's broken down into bad breath. So dairy is really a double whammy.
Right, okay. So that's certainly one of the things that you can try in terms of self-help, eliminating dairy.
Definitely. We suggest actually there's a product called rice milk, which you can buy from the supermarket just in those cardboard containers, and rice milk is actually a great substitute because it's a carbohydrate rather than a protein source. All
right. Is bad breath at all related to other body odours? Some people obviously emit a lot more offensive degrees of sweat than other people.
Yeah,
Any correlation?
It is. It's all about bacteria and waste products. It's just the same metabolic pathways coming from different bacteria in different areas.
So much to learn, isn't there?
Come in for a day, we'll teach you.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Learned a lot about the different types of bad breath and also just in terms of self-diagnosis. So if you think about cupping your hand, well, think again, because that's absolutely no good and you need a perfectly honest person to tell you what your breath really, really smells like. Just before I let you go, Dr. Spicer,
Sure.
the dental health regime, in most cases, brushing, flossing, all that sort of thing, using a mouthwash, will that help or not?
Brushing, flossing, tongue cleaning. This is the big thing the message we have to get out to Australians.
Tongue cleaning.
Tongue cleaning, but also using a gel on your tongue. So when you clean your teeth, you use a toothpaste.
Mm-hmm.
When you clean your tongue, you use a tongue gel. Now, the idea here is that basically the tongue is the biggest organ in the mouth. It will hold the most bacteria, coating, and sulfur compounds. So most of the smells coming out of the mouth are coming from the tongue surface.
Why won't toothpaste work on your tongue?
Well, first of all, a gel always will work better than a paste because microbially it's smaller. But also, when you clean a gel off, you can see the results. A paste always leaves a white film on your tongue. The pastes tend to have ingredients made for teeth, so they've got a lot of saccharins and artificial sweeteners that sort of leave aftertastes.
Right.
Really, it's more important that you're using a cleaning instrument like a tongue cleaner rather than just a toothbrush to clean your tongue.
Okay, so get a gel and get a tongue cleaner and perhaps try eliminating dairy. A few good tips there.
Yep.
What a learning curve. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Dr. Jeffrey Spicer. He's also known as Dr. Bad Breath. There you go. A few things I didn't know. 10:26. I don't think I'm not sure if I'll be brave enough to do the saliva test.
12:33 brings you stories from across the region, throughout the nation and around the world. Know what's going on in your world. 12:33 ABC Newcastle.